Hello and welcome back to Marineford TCG. My name is Joe. Drink of the day is Tenzing Lime Mint. And that's right, we got a Don Krieg leader. Who had this on their bingo card? I sure as hell didn't. But I'm really hyped and this guy actually looks really exciting. So let's just jump into Don Krieg. East Blue, Krieg Pirates. Unfortunately is Slash, so we'll give Mihawk an extra 1,000 power. Suppose that's quite fitting, right? Because Mihawk cut his boat in half in this show. Kind of funny. Anyway, Donix one opponent's turn. If you control only East Blue characters, all of your opponent's characters gain minus 2,000 power. -2 on all their characters is crazy. Like, sure, it doesn't hit their leader. But into going wide decks like a Gecko Moria or even Boa Hancock to an extent, that's insane. -2. And yes, this does lock you to playing the East Blue type characters only, but it is nice that this isn't a hard restriction like the Blue Army. So you could choose to play, for example, the Perona Searcher, but that will disable this effect. So probably not worth it, but interesting nonetheless. Means that you could play like a Hody Jones to go for game, potentially. And activate main once per turn, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with 2 or more given Don cards. Which, when I read this, I was like, huh? Surely if they've got Don cards on their characters, they've attacked with them. That's generally how this works. And especially 2 or more, because there are certain cards that have Don X1 on block effects, but there are not many cards that need 2 Don attached to them and then stay upright. However, it all makes sense when you look at the SR. 8/9 Don Krieg / East Blue Krieg Pirates. On play, give up to 3 of your opponent's rested Don cards to one of their characters. Then, this character gains Rush. Aha! So we can put 3 Don on our opponent's Whitebeard blocker, and then rest it for no cost. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Then activate main once per turn. If this character was played on this turn, give each of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power for each Don card given to that character. Now, let me just talk about Ace, because this is, I think, the matchup where it's going to be the most obvious. Your opponent wants to play 8-cost Whitebeard. What a shocker. They play it on 8, they put 2 Don on their leader, they put 2 Don on their Jozu, and then they've got the big Whitebeard blocker. Well, you can play this Krieg on your 9 Don turn, put 3 of those rested Dons on that big Whitebeard blocker, rest it with leader effect, then use this activate main. It will reduce the Whitebeard blocker to 9k, but more importantly, it will reduce the Jozu to 5k, which gives you a really easy time clearing that Jozu, and this guy has Rush. Into any deck that really likes putting Dons in their characters. I mean, imagine Jinbei, right? Jinbei likes putting like 6 Don on some of his characters sometimes. So sure, you might not be able to use the on-play of this necessarily. But say they've got a Fisher Tiger with 6 Don on it. Nice 1k, bro. That could be very, very funny. And I think into any deck that likes giving a lot of Don to their characters, this is going to be incredibly funny. But I think that Ace interaction is the one that sort of came to mind and made me think, oh, that's actually pretty good. Now, this isn't locked to anything. Obviously, you're not going to get the strict synergy where you get to give 3 of your opponent's rested Dons something and then rest it. But you can still give 3 of your opponent's rested Dons to one of their tapped characters just to give it a -3 power reduction. That seems reasonable. So you could maybe see this in other decks, although I'm not too sure. I think the decks where you're most likely to see it are like the RG/ decks because it is Slash. So maybe Smoker, maybe Odin. I'm not sure. I think this is probably only a Krieg card, but I would not be surprised to see people at least try it out in other decks, especially because it is searchable off Perona. Here are some other East Blue cards. Sadly, a lot of them are rotating. A lot of them are from OPO3, OPO4 for the Kuro deck. But here are some of the ones that live. The 2 Arlongs, if freezing your opponent's leader is relevant, certainly for when attacking leaders, that could be pretty good. If you were struggling with Moria or Green Zorro, classic. This 3-cost Arlong has just always been a nice little piece in certain decks. Puts the Don on your leader that you need for your leader's effect. Stops a 5 from resting. Not too bad. Pretty solid card. Lord of the Coast can freeze a guy, or to keep a guy tapped, rather. Koshiro for a bit of protection. Shanks, I don't know. The fact that you can't rest this yourself makes him a little bit weaker. But very funny if you can combine his opponent's turn effect with your leader, right, to give everything -3. That could be kind of obnoxious. Maybe you can use Samurai, because that's not rotating. Strive to Surpass Me, nice little counter event with the East Blue tag. And Buggy. He is an East Blue character. And the reason we're talking about East Blue is, again, because you need to only have East Blue characters. So, who knows? Will we get a searcher? Maybe. And it's a bit of a shame because we do have one. She's here. Look at her. She's a great searcher. But they've rotated her. Incredible. So by the time that we get these cards in the West, we will no longer have this Nami. Shame. Will be legal for a very short time for players in the East, though. So I imagine you will at the very least see this Nami in the Krieg deck. Django is another East Blue option, can restand your leader. It's alright. I don't know if this is ever going to make the cut even in the East while they have these cards legal. But it's one of the better East Blue cards, which is kind of cursed. And pull one out for 7 cost Kuro. What a joke, bro. They printed this card in OP14. They could have just locked it to East Blue, right? Like, would it be too broken? I don't know what 6 costs they're printing specifically for this deck. Would it be too broken if it just said if your leader has the East Blue type? Pull one out for the Kuro mains. We also got this Zeph, who is playable in Krieg, but I think he's more strictly Sanji support. 7/8 East Blue, when attacking, your leader's base power becomes 7,000 till the end of your opponent's next turn. And because this is a when attacking, if he survives, if he isn't removed or KO'd, you can just use it again next turn. This seems very, very solid. And the reason I put this because Sanji is because he can give it rush, right? Sanji can give Zeph rush, and then you immediately just become 7k on your 7 on turn. Pretty nice. And I do really like the theming, right? Because it's Sanji and Zeph. Classic. Next up, we got Enel. And forget about all this. Under the rules of the game, your Don deck is 6. Bizarre. The last time we got a restriction this bad was Rayleigh. And Rayleigh ended up being incredibly good. So I have faith in Bandai that there is a reason that your Don deck is 6. Because, I mean, this effect seems solid, but that's such a crazy restriction. I mean, you basically can't use cost 7 or higher cards unless there's some kind of cheat effect that we don't know about just yet. And you also just have less Don to play with to put on your dudes. However, you can activate main once per turn. If it's your second turn or later, you ramp 1 active and then ramp up to 4 rested, then give up to 4 rested to one of your characters. Can't go on leader, only goes on characters, although you could probably make pretty good use out of searchers. Just putting like 4 rested Don on a searcher. Swing for 6, for free, not too bad. I'm envisioning that this deck is going to have a lot of heavy Don minus for you to get the most out of this. Otherwise, this first effect is not going to come up too much, but we'll see. Ramping 1 Don active on your 3 Don turn to make sure you're at 4, so that you go to 6 on your 3rd turn, even on odds. Seems relevant because of this guy. 6/8 Enel, but not really. If you have 6 or less Don on your field, which, shockingly, you might, this character cannot be removed from your opponent's effects. Great. And gains 2,000 power. This is a 6/10. 6/10 is crazy. Then activate main dominance 1. This character gains blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. Then you can trash 1 card from your hand. So when you're 6th on turn, you can do this effect immediately. Just have a 10k blocker to block pretty much whatever your opponent does on the next turn. And then you can ramp 1 back as active. And then if you've got a character, you can give pretty much all the Don that you paid for this guy to that character. Maybe there's a 3 cost that we're playing. I don't know. We don't know what the cards do yet. As for other cards you can play in this deck, I mean, we really don't know yet. I think this is going to be heavily, heavily reliant on his package. You could try generic purple cards, but even like semi-staple ones like Usahachi don't work because you don't have enough Don on your field, which is quite funny. Maybe Gamma Knife could be okay for a bit of power reduction, but really, I think we're just waiting on the support for this guy. But this card's already got me hyped, and I'm not going to be baited again. I got baited into thinking Rayleigh would be bad on reveal. I'm confident this guy's going to be crazy. Don't do me, don't do me Bandai, please. Finally, Yellow Luffy. And when I first saw this, I think it had a bit of a weird translation. But I've read up in the chat and it's been confirmed by one of the guys that does the translating that this works on battle. So if your Sky Island character with 6,000 base power or more be KO'd or removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you can instead take 1 life to your hand. This is not once per turn. This is as many times as you like. So your board is basically, you can only take Luffy's board if Luffy lets you. Or if you negate the leader like Blackbeard does. But don't worry about him. He's not real. Some older cards that this can protect. You can protect Gadatsu. He's kind of outdated at this point. But you never know. You might play him. Kalgara, protecting this to give you constant draw. Seems pretty good. Because he is very, very good when you get the draw. But he becomes target number 1. So being able to defend him seems pretty solid. And of course, big Enel. Being at 2 these days can sometimes make you quite easy to kill. But depending on exactly what support this guy gets, this Enel could end up being broken. So what are the new cards that we've gained? Well, I should probably shrink my head just a touch. There we go, that'll do. So again, this new 7/7 1k Robin. On play, you may add the top card of your life to your hand if your leader has Straw Hat Crew. You heal 1, so you basically draw a card with extra steps. Then you can play a 5 cost or less Sky Island type character. I think this is solid. Again, you got a couple of targets on the previous page. You got the Gadatsu and the Kalgara already. And we've also gained this new Wiper, 5/6 1k on play. Flip 1 life face up. Give all the opponent's characters minus 2,000 power for the turn, making it easier to battle for their board. Then KO all the opponent's characters with 0 power or less. Now, in some kind of red deck, you could combine this with big power down, like Round Table, while it's still legal, to get some pretty crazy KOs. But even at a baseline, even if this is all you have, you're removing chump blockers, like the 2-cost Rosinante, little 1/1 chump blockers, Doll in Kobe, although they can obviously negate it, but that burns the negate, which is alright. And it also kills little weenies that your opponent might like to either rest or pick up. So into Mihawk, they have a Kikunojo on the board, they have a Perona on the board. They don't anymore. Into Boa, they have a Grandma on the board they're planning on picking up with the Slave Arrow. You can just get rid of the Grandma so that they can't then pick it up later. And the same with, like, if the opponent's playing a 6-cost Lore deck, you can burn all their searchers so they can't recycle them. Seems pretty solid. Then activate main, you get to give a rested Don to your Sky Island type leader or character. 3 Don every turn, absolute classic. And I suppose now is a good time to mention Leader Kalgara alongside this new 3-cost. This Wiper being able to put the Don on your leader means you, on 5, you could play this guy, put the Don on your leader, and then play another 5-cost. Maybe you got another one of these. You can give everything minus 4,000 for the turn, and then get all their 4,000 power characters. Probably not the most relevant, but it's a play you could make. And we also have this 3-cost Kalgara, which is a really nice 3-Don play for Sky Island. We've not really had a good 3-Don play. Kalgara was playing mostly just searchers on 3, but this is an even better searcher. 3/5, on play, trash 1, look at the top 5, grab up to 2 Shandian Warrior or Mont Blanc Nolan type cards, and then add them to your hand. So it reminds me a lot of the 3-cost Sengoku from Kuzan. Not as good because you don't draw 1 back, and he doesn't have counter, but he is a 5k stat line, which is pretty solid. And you can also play this out from Kalgara's leader effect, of course. I think because this only searches Shandian Warriors, not Sky Island. I'm not sure how much play this will see in the Luffy deck. It depends how many Shandian Warriors we get that synergize well with him. But we have a lot of Sky Island searches already, so I'm not sure if this one makes the cut in Luffy, but I very much suspect it will in Kalgara. Here's a couple of 2Ks we've got given. Nami, top 3 search for Sky Island, 1/2 2K, really good card. I imagine this will be staple in both Kalgara and Luffy. Ganfal, on the other hand, does not seem very good. You can read him if you like, but I'm not excited about this one. Final 2K we gained is Mont Blanc Nolan. I think this is only a Kalgara card. Don X1 when attacking one of your Kalgaras gains Rush. So if you play this on 4, then on 6 you use your leader effect, play out the Kalgara. Then you can put 1 Don on the Mont Blanc Nolan, swing in for 6, not a bad stat line at all. Give the Kalgara Rush, he swings in for 8, even more aggression in Kalgara. Seems quite compelling. I don't think you will see this in anything else, but it's nice that he's actually searchable off 3-cost Kalgara. Because he's not Sky Island. A couple of the cards that are less exciting. Raki has a pretty cool combo turn on 4 in Kalgara. You can play her out with the leader effect, use her effect, which she's a blocker that plays a 3. So you could play 3-cost Kalgara, and then with the remaining 3 Don you have, you can play another 3-cost Kalgara to get like 2 5Ks and a 4K blocker on the board on your 4-Don turn. Bit of a high roll, but could be cool if it comes up. And Kamakiri, I think, is terrible. I don't see much use for this card. Final 2 cards we gained. Again, I think both of these are pretty bad. Cornis is a 2K. It's like a Kaya, but it's conditional. Not fan. And Octopus Balloon has some of the best art I've seen. I really, really like this one. Look at it. Cute little Luffy with the Mary getting carried by the balloon. Love the art, but not a good card. Not a good card at all. As for other Sky Island cards you could consider playing, Upper Yard and Shura, both searchers. I imagine I don't know which one we prefer. Probably Upper Yard, just because it's a 1-cost. but I don't know, maybe Shura's better. L4 is a nice big counter event, and 200 million volts Amaru is a better Blaze Slice, I think, because with Yellow Luffy, we can very much control where our life is. So it's quite easy for us to get down to 1, I think. But we'll see. But this being searchable off your Sky Island searches, I think makes it likely better than Blaze Slice. And Blaze Slice has been seeing a ton of play recently. And of course, you can play all of your favourite generic yellow cards. Robin and Nami seem like 2 of the more compelling ones. This Nami's just kind of cracked. And the Robin's on KO is just so good that your opponent's not going to take her out, and the heal is solid. And Borsalino is a new card out of EVO4. I think he's going to become a fairly staple yellow card. Being a blocker that heals, just kind of crazy. Although it is worth noting that none of these cards are Sky Island, so you can neither protect them with your leader's effect, nor play them out off the 7-cost Robin. So depending on how much Sky Island support we actually get in the set, we've had a lot of it revealed, but a lot of it is sort of mid or commons. So I think there's still going to be a couple of really solid cards for this leader to come. But at the very least, you could look into more of a generic yellow package, as every yellow deck likes to do. And you can add your favourite yellow card to this slide if you like. Kuma, 6-cost Kuma, 7-cost Kuma. Even the new 10-cost Luffy that's coming in EBO4. You could just go down a yellow generic route. But I think we've got at least the basis of a pretty solid Sky Island package with some of these older cards for consistency. The new Wiper and the new Robin, and maybe even just 10-cost Enel, Kalgara, maybe even Gidatsu. We'll have to see what the rest of this set has in store for us, because you do want to lean into this leader effect as much as possible, I'm imagining. But it's nice to have some out-of-archetype cards that are just very, very good. Either way, that's it for today. Let me know, what do you think about Krieg? Did you think Krieg would get a leader? I think East Blue getting something was sort of leaked a while ago. But I was just thinking it would be a Kuro leader, because we got the 7-cost Kuro, right? I was like, surely they won't just rotate him. It seems they will. We're getting Krieg. I'm here for it. I'm all here for it. That Enel leader is so bizarre. It's got me kind of hyped to see what they're going for with him. And Yellow Luffy, now that I realise it works in battle, I get it. It's going to be so hard to kill this guy, to take this guy's board. It's going to be so, so hard. You can't remove it. You can't battle it if he says you can't. So it's kind of crazy. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited for this set, though. Let me know your thoughts if there's anything I missed, any cool combos. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.